The top stories: military commanders signed an agreement to implement the Pretoria peace deal. And all humanitarian corridors open to conflict-affected regions. Hello and thank you for joining us. You're watching Addis News Hour with the news. I'm Tabitha John. Do stay with us. We hereby present to you the thorough details of the peace agreement that's currently underway in Nairobi, Kenya. Do stay with us. The new round of peace talks that began on last Monday between Ethiopia's government and Tigray regional representatives to work out military and other details of last week's signing of the permanent cessation of hostilities in the two-year conflict is completed. The meetings in Kenya involved the military commanders of both sides, along with the lead political negotiators. In Nairobi, both have signed an agreement for the implementation of the peace deal that had been signed in South Africa, Pretoria, last week. The commander-in-chief of the two sides, Field Marshal Burhanu Jula, chief of the Ethiopian Defense Force, and General Taddese Warede from TPLF expressed their commitment to implement the Pretoria peace deal. Listen to this.
Based on the agreement reached in Pretoria, South Africa, for lasting peace through permanent cessation of hostility, we military commanders of both sides have been engaged in the detailed discussion on the full implementation of the agreement, emphasizing on the military aspect. We have been engaged in a good spirit and understanding. Accordingly, we want to express our full commitment for bringing peace and stability to our people and country. Therefore, we will fully dedicate ourselves to implement the Pretoria Agreement and this declaration. To this end, we would like to affirm our full commitment to the people of Ethiopia, to this panel and world. I thank you.
We fought for the last 2 years to protect our people and defend our interests. We have suffered untold misery over the last 2 years and still continue to suffer. The commitment we are making today is with the hope that expectations that our people's suffering will come to an end and soon. This is a very daunting task in the light of the many spoilers from within or outside who are profiting from this war. It's our expectation that the other party honors its agreement not only to end the conflict but also to facilitate humanitarian access and resumption of service. I thank you.
After they signed the agreement, the mediators realized the declaration.
With your permission, I will now proceed to read the press release of the senior commanders meeting between the government of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia and the Tigray People's Liberation Front agreed to facilitate unhindered humanitarian access. Nairobi, Kenya, 12 November 2022. The African Union Commission concludes the meeting of senior commanders following the signing of permanent cessation of hostilities agreement between the government of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia and the Tigray People's Liberation Front on the 2nd November 2022. The parties have agreed to facilitate unhindered humanitarian access to all in need of assistance in Tigray and neighboring regions, facilitate unhindered movement of humanitarian aid workers, provide security guarantees for humanitarian aid workers and organizations, as well as protection of civilians consistent with the provisions of the agreement. Furthermore, the parties agreed to the establishment of a joint committee to elaborate on the modalities for the implementation of a comprehensive disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration program. The African Union Commission applauds the parties on these significant confidence-building measures and encourages them to continue towards the full implementation of the cessation of hostilities agreement as part of overall efforts to end the conflict and restore peace, security, and stability in Ethiopia. The 4-day senior commanders meeting was facilitated by the AU High Representative for the Horn of Africa and former President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, His Excellency Olusegun Obasanjo, together with AU high-level panel members, former President of Kenya, His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta, and Her Excellency Madam Phumzile Mlambo, former Deputy President of the Republic of South Africa and member of the African Union Panel of the Wide. The African Union Commission expresses appreciation to the government and people of the Republic of Kenya for hosting this senior commanders meeting, a demonstration of the continent's commitment to the African Union's agenda of silencing guns in Africa. The African Union Commission further wishes to acknowledge the support of the Intergovernmental Authority on Development, IGAD, the United Nations, the United States of America, and the African Development Bank. And thank you.
The Council of Ministers discussed 2 regulations and referred a proclamation to the House of People's Representatives today, according to the Office of the Prime Minister. The Council first discussed a draft regulation to establish a National Reintegration Commission. The statement pointed out that since it is necessary to find a peaceful solution to the conflict that have been taking place in all areas of the country, it has become necessary to establish a National Reintegration Commission. The Commission will allow disarming the forces that were armed and make them join the society in a sustainable way and lead a peaceful life to participate in the process of development, peace and democracy in the country. In addition to this, the Council discussed the draft Defense Force Bill. The press release noted that the Defense Force is free from political bias and is in the process of reforming its mission of protecting the sovereignty of the country and the security of citizens. In order to further strengthen this reform and ensure its sustainability, a draft bill has been prepared and presented to the Council of Ministers to replace the existing proclamation by requiring a legal framework that is compatible with the current and future duties of the Defense Force. After an extensive discussion, the Council decided to pass it to the House of People's Representatives for endorsement. All humanitarian corridors are open to all war-affected areas in Ethiopia. Although the government of Ethiopia has been making maximum effort to address humanitarian aid to people affected by the war in the north, some Western media outlets are still disseminating fake news on the issue. Briefing the UN Humanitarian Agency's National Disaster Risk Management Commissioner, Shifarau Teklemariam said, all humanitarian corridors are now open to all the 3 conflict-affected regions in Ethiopia. Shagao Yamato has more from the Ethiopian News Agency.
After the Pretoria peace agreement between the federal government and the TPLF, a new chapter of peace and tranquility has been restored in the northern part of the country. To this end, the Ethiopian government is making a maximum effort to address humanitarian aid to people affected by the war in the north. Briefing the UN Humanitarian Agency's National Disaster Risk Management Commissioner, Shifarau Teklemariam said that following the signing of the peace agreement between the Ethiopian government and the TPLF, the government has opened both air and road transport to supply aid to Tigray.
On behalf of the Commission and the very many actors of the government, I would like to declare that all the corridors of the humanitarian access to Tigray, as well as the other the two regional states, Amhara and Afar, is open for any kind of operation. What it means is all kinds of supplies. It may be food, non-food items, medical equipments, medicine itself, and other related matters as well.
Kathleen Tozi, the UN resident and Ethiopian humanitarian coordinator for our part, underscored that the opening of all corridors to Tigray creates good opportunities to provide unfettered humanitarian aid to the region.
We work with the international community. The donors in Ethiopia, outside Ethiopia, fund a big proportion of the humanitarian support that is provided, filling the gap that the government is not able to meet. So we will continue to work. This is a partnership effort. It's not UN only or international NGO only or national NGO or donors only. It's a partnership around the humanitarian assistance that we will do. So we need to get much more coherent, much more speedy, with urgency in mind.
Although the government of Ethiopia had been delivering humanitarian aid to Tigray during the two-year-old conflict, some Western media were propagating fake news against Ethiopia. Even after the peace agreement of Pretoria, they are not happy about cessation of hostilities in Ethiopia and African solutions to African problems. The Guardian, one of the Western politically motivated media outlets, said nothing is moving to Tigray in terms of food aid and medicine 8 days after peace deal. However, the reality on the ground in Ethiopia is different. Tigrayans and people of Ethiopia are expressing their joy over the peace agreement, and humanitarian aid is being delivered to war-affected areas in the north.
The destructive war in the northern part of Ethiopia comes to an end with an agreement signed in Pretoria, South Africa. Amidst of this adverse situation, Ethiopia's economic development endeavors are proved resilient, of which is the construction of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, which is nearing completion. For more of God-related issues and other current matters of the country, watch us on Addis News Hour of ETV Language Channel.
The 2022 Ethiopian Great Run will take place this November. ETV English is provide live reporting, exclusive interview, sport assortments, and other related activities in the competition. We are also ready to make a report to show the significance of Ethiopian Great Run in cementing or boosting the sport diplomacy of Ethiopia.
The Minister of Labour and Skills, Muferiat Kamil, held a discussion with the German Development Bank East Africa representative, Gerald Kuhnmuth, and the bank's Ethiopian office officials. It is known that a wide consultation was held on financial and technical support provided by the bank, monitoring of the activities being carried out in the field of technical skills and training, and the availability of additional support in the future. Muferiat Kamil announced on her social media page that the German government has been providing great assistance through the bank by supporting the efforts by linking skill development with job creation. The minister added that the changes that have been made in the context of the development of skills and creative thinking, as well as technical and vocational training, which are being carried out in accordance with the ideas of the sector's changes, have been made in order to create job opportunities. The minister thanked Gerald Kuhnmuth and his delegation, as well as the German government, who came to the initial discussion for the follow-up and additional support, paying attention to the cooperation framework. The catch-call phrase, African solutions to African problems, was coined by the eminent political economist George Aite in response to the behavior of the international community in the crisis in Somalia. Since then, the phrase acquired a degree of autonomy. The independent American journalist Ann Garrison said the African Union, AU, has become stronger in defending African sovereignty by promoting African solutions to African problems. Kasaun Chani has more from the Ethiopian News Agency.
It is to be recalled the government of Ethiopia and TPLF signed a peace agreement last week after the peace talks conducted under the auspices of the African Union. A contributing editor at the Black Agenda and host of the listener-funded Great Zone Pacific Radio, Ann Garrison, told the Ethiopian News Agency that the African Union has become stronger and stronger in defending African sovereignty. Appreciating the efforts of the African Union to bring a peaceful solution to the conflict in northern Ethiopia, the American journalist described the peace agreement reached between the government and TPLF as a great achievement for African solutions to African problems.
The AU has been admirable from the very beginning in defending African solutions to African problems, and they never wavered. As have the African members, the current African members of the UN Security Council, were also faithful to defending Ethiopian sovereignty throughout the past 2 years. African nations on the Security Council, the African Union, several times spoke to the Security Council in defense of African solutions to African problems and Ethiopia's sovereignty. So, yeah, I've seen the African Union become stronger and stronger in defending African sovereignty over some years.
The journalist stressed the need for the African Union to be self-sufficient in terms of finance in its efforts to address African problems without any external influences. Garrison also noted that the peace agreement will help Ethiopia to overcome foreign pressures and the bills of sanctions against Ethiopia by U.S. officials, adding since the peace agreement has been negotiated and is unlikely to pass bills. According to the American journalist, Ethiopia has done a great job in these whole process in defending its sovereignty, noting that the peace agreement is a great exercise to the nation's sovereignty. The peace agreement would pave ways for Ethiopia to properly utilize its resources for economic development, she noted. Adding that it will consume a great deal of national wealth.
I'm really sad about how much Ethiopia has lost to this war. I mean, wars are very expensive. Remember hearing the chair of the National Dialogue Commission speaking on one of your broadcast outlets, and he said, we're losing everything to this war, our resources and our young people. And so, you know, that it's over is great, but there's been terrific loss.
Garrison pointed out that the government needs to solicit international resources for the construction and rehabilitation of war-torn areas as part of the peace deal, taking into account the sovereignty and national integrity of the country.
The peace agreement reached in Ethiopia will not only end the war that has been going on for the past 2 years, but also it lays foundation for lasting peace in the country. During his stay with ETV, Ambassador Mahamoud Dirir, a member of the National Dialogue Commission in Ethiopia, thanked those who contributed to the success of the peace agreement and stated that everyone should play their part for the peace, sustainability and effective implementation of the peace agreement. After speaking to the ambassador, Johannes van Tahun compiled the following report. Take a look.
It is said that the agreement between the federal government and the TPLF mediated by the African Union has not only ended the 2 years war in the country, but also laid a deep foundation for lasting peace. Ambassador Mohamed Dweir, a member of the Ethiopian National Dialogue Commission, during his stay with ETV, said the following about the implications of the peace agreement.
Now that an agreement has been reached between, a peace deal has been signed in Pretoria, South Africa, between the Ethiopian government and the TPLF, it is a very important milestone in itself. It means the cessation of hostilities, the end of a war that has caused the death of lives of innocent civilians as well, not only the parties engaged in the conflict per se. It has also affected not only the region of Tigray, but also the Amhara and Tigray and Afar as well. So now that peace is the catchword, peace has at last prevailed in Ethiopia. We all have to enhance that peace, and we pray God to make peace prevalent not only in Ethiopia but also in the Horn of Africa and the entire world.
Recalling the damage happened in Tigray, Amhara and Afar regions due to the 2 years long war in Ethiopia, Ambassador Mohamud said that much is expected from the society and the media for lasting peace in Ethiopia and for the peace agreement to be properly implemented.
We have to work towards the enhancing of the peace that has been, the peace deal that has been signed by the Ethiopian federal government and the TPLF. The media especially should not spoil or play the role of spoiler in this towards this end. It has to enhance the message of fraternity, of the healing process, of healing the wounds, the deep wounds that the societies have sustained, and focus on the future, the bright future that awaits Ethiopia.
The ambassador, who said that the peace agreement reached in Ethiopia has great role for the realization of lasting peace in the country, reiterated the role of the peace agreement for its positive impact for the image of the Horn of Africa.
Our neighbor Somalia is suffering severely from the attacks of Al-Shabaab, which targets civilians and government officials as well. And for an investor who is outside the region, when these news comes out from the Horn of Africa, the Horn will be generally considered as a region of conflict, a region of war, and losing the opportunities of investment, of foreign direct investment, has its own implications in the economies of the region. Therefore, all of us, we have to work towards the enhancing of the peace that has been, the peace deal that has been signed by the Ethiopian federal government and the TPLF.
Ambassador Dweir also thanked those who played a great role for the realization of the peace agreement between the government of Ethiopia and the TPLF.
We would like to thank the African Union, the role that Olusegun Obasanjo has played with his team, the former Vice President of South Africa, Ngoka, that is the right pronunciation of her family name, and of course former President Uhuru Kenyatta, and all the others who have been part and parcel of this very important milestone in bringing about peace in Ethiopia. Of course, the commitment of the Ethiopian government as well as the goodwill and commitment of the TPLF.
A new flower is a seed for African Union and many international embassies.
We have to protect our green legacy. The green legacy is very essential for one country.
concepts and features for the park is something that people have to take part in.
It's so beautiful and also it's so nice.
It's very nice, yeah. It's a very nice park and very diverse and very green. It brings something extra, and I think, like I said, it's a good spot to relax with the green and with the nice view you have. Yeah, I would recommend it to come here.
This place is pretty nice because I like the water show. I like the decoration. For example, that is really cool.
Lots of experience have been enjoyed by people who have come across from different areas.
Come visit, see this place. It's pretty, it's worth it. Come here.
In business news, the Ministry of Mines of Ethiopia and SGS, a world-leading verification, testing and certification company, has signed an agreement to build a modern mining geochemistry laboratory with a cost of $50 million in Addis Ababa. Minister for Mines and Petroleum Takala Uma and Managing Director of SGS Ziad Oti signed the agreement on the sidelines of the International Mining and Technology Expo Mintex that kicked off on Thursday at the Millennium Hall in Addis Ababa. Minister of Mines and Petroleum Takala Uma said during the occasion that the $50 million laboratory will play a vital role for the development of the mining sector in Ethiopia. According to him, up until now, several companies, especially those in the mining sector, used to send their mineral samples abroad to get testing, verification and certification to verify the quality of their samples. When operational in just 1 year time, hopefully before the next Mintex exhibition, SGS Laboratory will enable mining companies that operate in Ethiopia and even Africa to get testing, verification and certification inside the country, he said. SGS Managing Director Ziad Oti said, "We will immediately start to work on the feasibility studies and the details needed. The company will exert efforts to make the facilities ready for service as per the agreed date," he added. Participants of the International Mining and Technology Expo said the expo is critical to promote the untapped mining sector of the country to others. According to exhibitors, the expo is also vital to create business-to-business partnership with other institutions to scale up mining business across the country. Let's take a look.
The mining sector in Ethiopia is untapped. The sector generates $46 million in 2018-2019 fiscal year. After the massive political reform in Ethiopia, the sector stimulates and generates $557 million in 2021-2022. This is a remarkable achievement for the Ministry of Mines and Petroleum.
Well, it means a lot. We are Sozo Trading. We've been in business for the past 15 years, and this kind of event, this kind of exhibition has never happened in the country. So for us, it's actually a very big deal, whereby we could actually display our products and display what is actually available in the country in terms of mines, in terms of gemstones, in terms of minerals. Now, the world and Ethiopia itself and the rest of Africa can actually know what is available in our country. So for us, it's a big deal.
This is maybe not the first one, but this is the biggest one and the beautiful one. The importance of this expo is we have a lot of things. We have been in this trade for like 15 years, and this expo is the use of this expo is to make a connection with the other companies and the traders. Also, that's the great thing. The main important thing is to explain for the people about this, the stones, to make awareness. That's the great thing about this expo.
This is very important because, we want to share for the world, for the rest of the world, what Ethiopia have in its own natural resources, and that the world have to know that For example, just years ago, that the GIA survey, they just came and witnessed something special, that Ethiopian emerald is better than Colombian, because emerald is made up of 3 salts: chromium, iron, and vanadium. So the uniquest one to the Ethiopian emerald, there is a lot of more vanadium than the rest of the world, even better than the Muzo Colombian emerald. That's why they witness Ethiopian emerald is better than Colombian.
I mean, it's very important because there are gemstones that are actually more expensive than diamond, believe it or not. And there are 15 of them, and all those 15 are found in Africa, and 9 out of those 15 are in Ethiopia. So it's about time that everybody wakes up and actually uses this opportunity, because this is what can actually get us out of poverty, out of debt. I mean, we can self-sustain, and you know, it's an industry that hasn't been touched. It's an industry that needs to be invested in. It's an industry that people need to actually go into, so people need to start taking it seriously.
As a whole, I think Ethiopia has a fantastic future in mining. There's so much potential to be unlocked in Ethiopia, and I think that we're only at the beginning of this journey. We're a very small company. We're 65 employees in total, all of us here in Ethiopia, or most of us in Ethiopia. So I think that this is, together we can build a brilliant future for Ethiopian mining, and it can be done with help from us. But there's a lot of knowledge, a lot of skill in Ethiopia already, and all it needs to be unlocked essentially.
Yeah, it's very good and so worth for us. So we got good idea from here. So we can do good business with Ethiopia. So everything good here, everything good and interesting. The communication is very good. So everything fine. The good people's heart, everything's fine. So everything is so easy to communicate with people. So very easy to communicate with people. So they are so friendly with business and so honest, can do a good business with trust.
Information obtained from the Ministry of Mines and Petroleum is showing that activities were underway to increase the share of mining sector into 70% in the nation's economy. The first international mining expo concluded after successful business deliberation in the capital of Africa, Addis Ababa.
And finally, the Pan-African Parliament leadership is on course to reposition itself to represent the interests of Africans. The Parliament is a registered body of the African Union, currently with 257 members. The Parliament is composed of 5 members per member state that have ratified the protocol establishing it, including at least 1 woman per member state and reflecting the diversity. Jerusalem Betsa has more from CGT in Africa.
The Pan-African Parliament was established to ensure full participation of Africans in the economic development and integration of the continent. The Pan-African Parliament is intended as a platform for people from all African states to be involved in discussions and decision-making on the problems and challenges facing the continent. A total of 257 members of Parliament are meeting to deliberate on issues affecting the African continent.
Our aim is to ensure that the voice of African people also finds this expression in the global development agenda. The interests of Africa should always find space on the global discussion table.
Speaking on behalf of South Africa's President, Justice and Correctional Service, Minister Ronald Lamola implored these parliamentarians to pay close attention to key projects such as the African Continental Free Trade Area as they deliberate.
The Pan-Africanist Parliament has an important mandate of contributing to the strengthening of the culture of democracy, good governance and the rule of law in the continent. The African Continental Free Trade Area is also one of the tools at our disposal to contribute to greater integration. But it will require the finalization of the harmonization of standards across the continent and the streamlining of our supply chains, amongst others.
For the first time since its establishment, the Parliament was addressed by the Commonwealth Secretary General.
This Parliament
has made it clear that the issues we face, including those on trade and development, are similar to the Commonwealth and similar to our connectivity agenda.
You're watching Addis News Hour. Here's a reminder of the stories making headlines. Military commanders signed an agreement to implement the Pretoria peace deal. And all humanitarian corridors open to conflict-affected regions.